Disclaimer: this story is based on true events, shared with full permission. Names and certain details have been changed to protect privacy. Viewer discretion is advised, especially for sensitive themes involving relationships and personal experiences. It was a regular Tuesday morning when I met her. I remember because I was already running late for my shift and hadn't even had my coffee yet. The hospital was buzzing with its usual chaos, nurses moving fast, pagers going off, and patients in and out of rooms like a revolving door. That's when I saw her, Anna. She was sitting quietly in the waiting area, her hands clenched tightly in her lap, trying to stay composed, but something in her eyes gave away that she was barely holding it together. She had come in with her husband, who was having some minor chest discomfort. Nothing life-threatening, but enough to get him admitted for tests. As a nurse, I've dealt with hundreds of patients and families, but something about Anna caught my attention right away. It wasn't just that she looked worried. It was deeper than that, like she was scared of something more than just her husband's condition. I didn't think much of it at first. I was just doing my job, checking vitals, updating charts, giving the usual reassurances. Her husband, Mark, seemed like a decent guy. Charming even. The kind who makes small talk and tries to lighten the mood, even when hooked up to machines. But the more time I spent with them, the more I noticed little things, awkward silences between them, how he'd snap at her over the smallest things, and how she would immediately go quiet, like she was used to being blamed. Over the next couple of days, I found myself talking to Anna more and more. Not about medical stuff, just about life. She told me she was a teacher. Loved books, hated cold coffee, had a cat named Bruno. We laughed about silly things and even bonded over 90s music playing faintly from the nurse station. She seemed relieved to talk to someone who wasn't judging her, someone who actually listened. I could tell she hadn't had that in a long time. But the more she opened up, the heavier it got. One night, as I was finishing my shift, I found her standing alone in the hallway, looking out the window. I asked if she was okay, and after a long pause, she whispered, "I'm not sure what to do anymore." It wasn't about the hospital. It wasn't about her husband's health. It was something else entirely. Something deeper, personal, and buried under years of silence. That was the first time she hinted at the truth. At the life she was living behind closed doors. And what she said next started a chain of events I never could have seen coming. She told me she felt trapped. That her marriage wasn't what it looked like. That she wasn't even sure if she loved Mark anymore. There were things happening, conversations, late-night disappearances, a strange phone call she once overheard. She was beginning to suspect that she wasn't the only woman in her husband's life. Now, I know what you might be thinking, why would she tell me all this? A stranger in scrubs. But sometimes, it's easier to open up to someone on the outside. Someone who doesn't have a stake in the story. Someone who'll just listen. I wanted to help her. Not as a nurse, but as a human being. And maybe that's where I crossed a line. Because helping someone doesn't always mean just being there. Sometimes, it means digging deeper, asking questions, and seeing things you wish you hadn't. One evening, Mark asked to speak to me alone. Said he wanted to clear the air. At first, I thought he meant something medical. But what he said made my stomach drop. He looked me dead in the eyes and asked, "Has Anna been talking to you about me?" That moment changed everything. It was like he knew. Like he had been watching us. The way his tone shifted, how his friendly mask dropped for just a second, it was enough to set off alarms in my head. And from that point on, things got complicated. Because what I didn't know then was that Anna wasn't just suspecting something. She was right. Mark was hiding something. Something darker than either of us could have imagined. And when the truth finally came out, it didn't just blow up their marriage. It turned all our lives upside down. But I'll tell you what happened next, in the next part. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. After that conversation with Mark, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The way he looked at me, it wasn't just curiosity. It was a warning. Like he was testing how much I knew, or worse, how much Anna had told me. I tried to brush it off as paranoia, maybe even guilt for getting too personally involved with a patient's situation. But deep down, I knew I had stumbled into something I shouldn't have. I started noticing the smallest details. Like how Mark always had his phone on silent and never left it unattended, even during routine checkups. Or how Anna would flinch whenever his voice got just a little too loud. And then there were the moments when she looked like she wanted to say something but would stop herself, eyes darting around like she was scared someone was listening. One afternoon, while Mark was taken down for an imaging scan, Anna and I sat in the hospital garden. She looked tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep fixes, the kind that comes from pretending for too long. She stared at the plants, her fingers nervously picking at her sweater, and finally said, "I found messages. On his laptop. They weren't meant for me." I didn't press her for details. She didn't have to explain. The pain in her voice said enough. She believed Mark was cheating, and the signs had been building for a while. Late nights at work, sudden business trips, a shift in how he treated her. And now, those messages, she didn't say exactly what they were, but I could tell they were intimate, personal. Proof that she wasn't imagining things. I asked her if she confronted him. She shook her head. "I don't think I can handle what he might say," she replied quietly. "What if I'm right? What if I'm not?" That's when I realized Anna wasn't just heartbroken. She was confused, scared, stuck between what she wanted to believe and what she already knew. And somehow, I had become the one person she trusted enough to confide in. But that trust came with a heavy weight. I wasn't supposed to be this involved. As a nurse, I knew where the line was drawn. But as a person, as someone who'd seen pain in too many faces, I couldn't just turn away. The next day, things got stranger. When I walked into Mark's room for his routine check, he was already awake, staring at the ceiling. He didn't smile this time. No jokes. Just a cold, steady look. "You talked to her again?" he asked, almost casually. I kept it professional, told him I was just doing my job. But he wasn't convinced. "She gets ideas. Starts imagining things. Don't feed into it." It wasn't just the words, it was the way he said them. Like he knew he had control, like he was used to being believed over her. That hit me harder than I expected. I'd seen this kind of behavior before, in other patients, other couples. The quiet manipulation. The gaslighting. And I started wondering, how long had Anna been living like this? Later that evening, I checked on her again. She was sitting alone in the family lounge, holding a paper coffee cup with both hands. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. She told me she'd been married for nearly 8 years. That the beginning was sweet, flowers, surprise dates, shared dreams. But over time, something shifted. He got busier. Distant. And then cold. "He doesn't hit me," she said, almost as if trying to reassure herself. "But sometimes I think that would be easier. At least then I'd know it was real." Those words stuck with me. The way she said them. Soft. Broken. And suddenly, this wasn't just about infidelity anymore. It was about emotional wounds no one could see. About a woman who had given everything to a man who made her feel invisible. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about all the things Anna wasn't saying. About how carefully Mark watched her. About how he seemed so polished in front of everyone but had these moments where the mask slipped. And I started to wonder, what if it wasn't just cheating? What if there was more going on beneath the surface? The next morning, I got a call from the nurse on night duty. She told me something strange had happened. That Anna had been seen crying in the stairwell around 3 a.m., talking on the phone, whispering, panicked. When the staff tried to check on her, she said she was just calling her sister. But no one could confirm that call ever happened. Then came the real twist. A nurse from another floor, who had no idea about Anna's situation, mentioned something offhandedly during lunch. "Funny thing," she said, "I saw Mark last week here with a woman. I thought it was his wife, but now I'm not so sure. Different hair, different voice." My stomach dropped. That was it. The missing piece. Something Anna never saw. Something Mark probably thought he got away with. But if that woman wasn't Anna, who was she? And more importantly, why was she at the hospital with him? What happened next changed everything. But we'll get into that in the next part. Because the truth? It's deeper and darker than either of us expected. After hearing what the other nurse said, my mind was spinning. I kept replaying her words, trying to make sense of them. If it wasn't Anna with Mark last week, then who was it? And why would he bring another woman to the hospital? It wasn't just about cheating anymore, it felt calculated, almost like he was testing how far he could go without getting caught. The worst part was, Anna had no idea. She was still stuck in her doubts, thinking maybe she was just overthinking everything. I didn't know what to do with this information. It wasn't my place to go digging into a patient's personal life, but this wasn't about curiosity anymore, it was about someone who was clearly being lied to, maybe even emotionally manipulated. I decided not to tell Anna just yet. I needed to be sure. So I started asking around casually, nothing obvious. Just quiet questions to a few staff members who might have been working that day. One of the receptionists mentioned seeing a tall woman with long black hair come in with Mark. Said she looked younger, well-dressed, like she didn't belong in a hospital at all. That description didn't fit Anna. Not even close. Meanwhile, Anna was starting to change. She was more withdrawn, barely speaking unless I asked her something directly. She said Mark had been acting strange, more attentive, overly nice, like he was trying to fix something without admitting he broke it. That behavior is common. People who are guilty often overcompensate. I tried to explain it gently, without making it too obvious, but she already sensed it. "I think he knows I'm onto him," she said, eyes lowered. "He keeps asking if I'm happy, if I need anything. He even brought flowers this morning. He hasn't done that in years." The more she talked, the clearer it became that she was beginning to see him for who he really was. But it also meant she was in a vulnerable place. When someone starts realizing the truth, they either get stronger, or they collapse under it. A few days later, I was walking past the cafeteria when I saw Mark sitting alone, talking on his phone. I stopped just out of sight, not to eavesdrop, but his tone caught my attention. He was angry. Whispering harshly, like he didn't want anyone to hear. "No, I told you not to come here again. You were lucky no one recognized you. She's suspicious now." My heart dropped. He wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. The call ended, and he looked around quickly before standing up and walking off. I stood there frozen, realizing I'd just heard something I wasn't supposed to. Now I had a decision to make: tell Anna what I heard, or keep quiet and risk her walking blindly into more lies. But before I could decide, something unexpected happened. A new patient was admitted to the same floor. A woman named Clara. She had a minor injury, nothing serious, but when I saw her, my stomach flipped. Tall. Long black hair. Sharp features. Expensive perfume. She looked exactly like the woman the receptionist described. And guess who showed up at her bedside later that evening? Mark. He didn't even look surprised to see me there. Just smiled like everything was fine and introduced her as an old family friend. Clara nodded politely, but there was something in her eyes, something nervous, guarded. The way she avoided Anna's name, the way she didn't ask about his wife or his situation. It felt rehearsed. I couldn't take it anymore. That night, I wrote everything down: dates, conversations, little things I'd noticed. I needed to have it all straight in case I ever had to share it. This was no longer just a story about a cheating husband. There were layers to this. Lies upon lies. And Anna, the one person trying to hold on to her sanity, was sitting right in the middle of it, unaware of just how deep it all went. But there was still one piece missing. Who was Clara really? And what did she know? Because the way she looked at Mark, it wasn't love. It was fear. And the worst part? I had a feeling Anna was about to find out everything, the hard way. But that part of the story, I'll share next. After Clara was discharged, things got worse. Anna became unusually quiet. Not the kind of quiet that comes from exhaustion, but the kind that screams something's wrong. She started asking deeper questions, ones she used to avoid. "Do you think people can live double lives?" she asked me once, her voice barely above a whisper. I could see it in her eyes, she didn't need me to answer. She already knew. Mark, on the other hand, was acting like nothing was wrong. Laughing with the staff, joking with doctors, bringing Anna coffee every morning like he was trying to rewrite their story. But I saw the cracks. The way his eyes flickered when she spoke. The fake smiles. The way he looked over his shoulder just a little too often. And Clara? She never came back to the hospital, but I couldn't stop thinking about her. I even tried to look her up online, but I found nothing. No social media, no linked phone numbers, no trace. It was like she didn't exist outside of that short visit. Which made it even worse. Because now it wasn't just about cheating, it was about secrets. Hidden relationships. And a woman no one really knew. Then, one night, everything shifted. Anna came into the nurse station around midnight. She wasn't crying, but her hands were shaking. She held out a folded piece of paper, and I could tell from her face it wasn't something she wanted to share, but something she had to. "I found this," she said, her voice trembling. It was in his coat pocket. I opened the note. It wasn't long, just a few sentences, written in messy, rushed handwriting. No name, no greeting. Just, "You said she wouldn't be here. You promised. I won't be part of this anymore." That was it. That one note confirmed everything. Someone had been close enough to leave a message in Mark's pocket. Someone who was supposed to stay hidden. And now, they were breaking away. Anna looked at me, her eyes searching mine. "He's been lying for a long time, hasn't he?" I couldn't lie to her anymore. I just nodded. The hospital felt colder after that. The lights dimmer. The hallways quieter. Something was building, something we couldn't see but could feel pressing in from all sides. Anna wasn't just heartbroken anymore. She was ready. Ready to uncover the truth. Ready to confront what she had spent years ignoring. But what she didn't know was that the truth was already on its way to her. And when it arrived, it wouldn't come gently. The next morning, just when I thought things couldn't get more complicated, the hospital received an unexpected visitor. A woman walked in asking for Mark by name, but it wasn't Anna, and it definitely wasn't Clara. She was older, maybe in her mid-40s, with sharp eyes and a calm but firm presence. She didn't look confused or lost, she walked straight to the reception like she knew exactly what she was doing. I watched from a distance as the receptionist pointed toward Mark's room. Before I could stop her, she was already halfway down the hall. I followed quietly, and by the time I got there, the door to Mark's room was closed. A few minutes passed. Then raised voices. Not shouting, just tense, fast words. The kind you say when you're trying to keep your cool but your world is spinning. I leaned closer and caught just enough to feel my stomach drop. "You said she didn't know anything. You said this was handled. I told you to wait, coming here was a mistake." The woman's voice was sharp. "No, trusting you was the mistake." I stepped back before anyone saw me. This woman wasn't Clara. And from what I could gather, she wasn't just another affair. Her tone, her confidence, this woman had power. Maybe not over Mark, but definitely over whatever truth he was trying to hide. Later, I found Anna sitting by the window again. She looked calm, but I knew her too well by now to be fooled. She said Mark had suddenly told her they were being discharged early. No warning, no doctor's note, just a bag packed and a ride home. Something was happening. Something big. And the worst part? I had a feeling this wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about exposure. And someone was desperate to keep the truth buried, no matter who got hurt. Just as Mark was preparing to leave the hospital with Anna, everything unraveled at once. The woman from earlier, her name was Rachel, walked straight into the hallway with a file in her hand. She wasn't just another woman in his life. She was a private investigator. Hired by Clara. And she had proof, bank transfers, messages, photos, even security footage, connecting Mark not just to Clara, but to 2 other women in different cities. The worst part? One of them had a restraining order against him. That's what he was trying to hide. Rachel handed the file directly to Anna. I was there when she opened it. Her hands were shaking, but she didn't cry. She just stared, flipping through page after page, as everything she had doubted became undeniable. Her marriage. The years of manipulation. The gaslighting. It had all been real. Mark tried to take the file from her, but she stepped back. Don't, she said. Don't say another word. Security was called. Not because of a fight, but because one of the women had already reported Mark for fraud months ago. Rachel had been gathering evidence quietly, waiting for the right moment. That moment was now. As Mark was escorted out of the building, still trying to talk his way out, Anna finally broke down. But not in the way I expected. She smiled. Not out of happiness, but relief. But just when we thought it was over, Rachel pulled me aside and said, "You should know, Clara disappeared 3 days ago. She never returned my calls. And the last address she gave me was fake." Even with the truth out, one mystery remained. And some shadows don't disappear that easily. Days passed, and the hospital quieted down. Mark was officially under investigation, not just for infidelity but for financial fraud and emotional abuse. His double life had finally caught up with him. Anna stayed one more night before she was discharged. We sat together in the garden, the same spot where she first opened up to me. This time, she looked different, still hurt, still healing, but stronger. She said, "I don't think I ever really knew him. But I'm starting to know myself again." Clara was never found. Her phone remained off, her trail cold. Some say she ran to protect herself. Others think she was never meant to be found. Whatever the truth, she became a ghost in the story, a reminder that not every answer brings peace. Rachel followed up with Anna a week later, just to check in. She offered legal contacts, support groups, even therapy referrals. Anna took them all. She said she wanted to start fresh, not just away from Mark, but away from the version of herself that accepted less than she deserved. For me, it was a lesson too. Not just about deception, but about how much people hide behind calm smiles and small talk. As a nurse, you see a lot, but sometimes, the real wounds are emotional, the kind that never show up on an X-ray. This wasn't just a story about cheating. It was about truth, strength, and the courage to face what hurts. And if you're still here listening, maybe it's a sign you're stronger than you think too. Thanks for watching. 9.